hear this all the time, that a man should lead a relationship. And I agree. A good man should lead the relationship and should be able to hold and sustain a woman. And if he doesn't properly, that can really lead to a relationship to fail. But today, I want to ask something that we don't ask enough. Today, I'm going to confront you and maybe put you a little bit uncomfortable. What we're waiting for the right man, we women are ignoring that sometimes we have ways to make the relationship harder. Today, I'm getting absolutely comfy, more comfy than ever, because girls, we need to talk. It's time to take responsibility and accountability that sometimes the blame is also in us. Maturity is not only recognizing someone's mistakes, but also recognizing ours. And please don't get offended or misunderstand this message, because today is not about blaming women, but it's about having the necessary conversation that can lead us to become the kind of woman that makes a healthy relationship possible. Welcome to the Woman's Talk Show. A healthy relationship. That sounds like music to my ears, music to your ears out there, that you're longing for love, that you're maybe in a relationship that unfortunately you cannot describe as healthy enough, or you have been through others that were totally the opposite. That's all we want. We want love, but we want it to be healthy, of course. We want something that is nice. And healthy doesn't mean no problems, doesn't mean no arguments, doesn't mean not thinking in different ways. It doesn't mean not going through hard seasons. And it doesn't mean that relationships are actually easy or they don't have difficulties. But in my experience and the things I have learned from others, as well from other couples, other marriages, or even my own experiences from when I was in my 20s, and I was more immature when it comes to knowing how to handle relationships or how to participate in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, and how much my perspectives and what I was looking for in a man has been also evolving through the years. While I was thinking of how can I structure this episode, I came up with mostly 7 habits that can quietly damage a relationship. And don't get me wrong, sometimes we do it very unconsciously. Sometimes there's a lot of factors around the behaviors of the things that we do in a relationship without even noticing that we are actually pushing our relationship to fail. So today I want to talk about it, and we are going to start with number 1, which is that we want leadership and we are looking for a man that can lead, but we resist being led. And this one can be absolutely controversial, and it also needs a lot of discernment, because I've been in situations where I thought, or where I actually felt, that being led was being controlled. So of course I could notice the resistance in me. And being led or being submissive can be very tricky if it's not happening in the right environment. Of course, I want to bring the scripture and the Bible and the Word of God into this, because He's the one who teaches us about love, about relationships, the best way possible. And the fact that God commands a wife to submit to her husband. In this case, of course, we are talking about a stage of marriage already. There's nothing like boyfriend and girlfriend, dating or whatever. But in today's society, we have learned to do things very, very different. So we really need to handle all of this with a lot of care, so it doesn't get misunderstood, of course. But the thing is, when you're a wife, God asks you to submit to your husband. And okay, this sounds Like, okay, I allow my man to lead me. And that's what a feminine woman desires. Absolutely. But I also seen like a lot of men taking advantage of this sentence and pushing women to submit to them in a very controlling way. I've seen a lot of people using this sentence to tell us women to submit to men, but they forget the part where God asked a husband to love their wife as Jesus Christ loved the church. And that is a whole different level, because this is the moment where leadership makes more sense. Jesus Christ loved the church and he died for the church. As a woman, submitting to a man that will die for you, that takes care for you, that protects you, that will be there for you, that will even protect you from his own family, to submit to a man that will die for you, it's very easy. It's a pleasure to submit to a man. It's a pleasure to trust a man, to know that he would die for you. God doesn't tell you to submit to any man. God tells you to submit to a man that would die for you. And that's when the man takes the leadership. And that's when it makes sense what I was telling at the same, that if the man doesn't lead correctly, and if he cannot hold and sustain a woman correctly, it can lead the relationship to fail. And of course, this biblical teaching is absolutely beautiful when we can perform it in the way that God asks us to do it. But in today's world, when women have been taught to be strong, independent, and honestly, it's actually is a major reality in today's society. Women, we are not longer passing from our family and our fathers taking care of us and entering a relationship with a husband that will take care of us. Not anymore. In the middle, we become independent, we live alone, we have our job, we have our money. So we really form a different character in us. So even for me, I'm very independent since I am very young. So when someone wants me to tell me what to do, I really get triggered and I feel controlled. So it has been a lesson for me, and it has been something that I still need to learn. So in a world of a lot of empowered women, sometimes we think that we are being controlled. But there is a difference between being controlled and refusing to trust our partner's decisions. And this is where it gets complicated and easy at the same time. To really trust someone's decisions, if we have a man and we think, okay, my entire life depends on this man, trusting that person and that person's decisions is absolutely important. To building that trust, finding a man that can trust, and this is so deep. Sometimes I really think how deep is, how important is to find someone that we can fully trust, and trust that this man will give his life for me. When I have to think about, when we are choosing a partner, and a future husband, of course, and a potential husband, we are going to be choosing the person who will be there with us when we have to say goodbye to our parents, when we are in sickness, when we have something to do and we have to let them take care of our kids alone without us being there. We are choosing someone that will be there in our ups, our downs. So it's really important that we try to make the right decision. And many times we don't really think that way. I didn't think that way for many years. I didn't think about all these important factors of the future. When you're choosing a man, you're not just choosing a man that will pick up the best restaurant for a date night. You will also be picking a man that you can trust, that he will take care of the kids while you're having fever and you have to stay in bed. And how many of us, we don't fully trust our men to take care of our kids correctly? And that is not a small thing. So I do think that trust is extremely important, but we will talk about that later. I think that also we need to be coherent when we expect a man to lead, but then we question every decision he makes. Sometimes we also need to surrender. Of course, when we can trust the leadership, but we need to surrender and we need to understand that leadership works if someone is willing to follow. But of course, I'm talking about healthy relationships, not manipulation, not abuse, and not domination. Another thing that women do a lot is that multiple times we try to change them instead of accepting who they are. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that sometimes we do. We met someone, we fall in love, we continue life, we decide to make a life with them or start dating or you name it. And I mentioned this before, but how many times we fall for the potential and we date the person that they could be while thinking, I'll change him. You know, it's okay. He's okay, he's good enough, but I know he can be better in this and this and that. So no worries. With time, I'll change him. I inspire him. I'll be his inspiration muse and I will inspire him to grow, to be better, to dress differently. I will fix him. No, that is a very big mistake because multiple times the potential that we see will never happen. I've seen, yes, a lot of examples that I know. Most of the time, I don't want to be general, most of the time men are not great with their appearance or their own presence. And I've seen many men that have been in a relationship with someone that literally has upgraded them and they look way better and things like that. But that's a man that is really willing to grow and it's open to that. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes women, we need to be a little bit more cold and realistic and accept that we are going to marry the person that he is today, and not the project that we see in our minds. Number 3, turning every disagreement into a competition. Not every argument needs a winner. And sometimes the goal, it shouldn't be, I want to be right. You know, I know that very old relationships where probably this thing about submission would perform in a more common way. Probably there wasn't such an argument between a man and a woman the way that there is today. I'm pretty sure that women years ago wouldn't fight back the way that we do. And we need to accept that as well. I think, of course, we are in a society where women behave very, very different. We have learned this sense of independence and sense of control of our own life that sometimes we don't really allow a man to disagree with us, or we answer back the things that we don't agree, what we don't agree with. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong because our voice matters as well. But multiple times I've been fighting against the ego of the other person and my ego was fighting as well. And it was a matter of who is right and who is wrong. I think the goal should be, I want us to understand each other. And I've also been there. And I also think that, yeah, sometimes we do argue or fight with this intention that I really want you to put yourself in my shoes and I am trying to understand you, but I also want you to understand me. And sometimes it doesn't work, the message doesn't get through, but at least having a very different intention instead of I am right, because it's also there's this joke that she's always right. You know, like women, we are always right, and men should tell us, yes, my love, you are right. And I think subconsciously that can be playing against our behaviors towards the good of the relationship. Number 4, very important, is making him responsible for our happiness. This one is huge. And I want to talk from different perspectives. We need to know and we need to be self-centered, knowing that the happiness comes from within. Yes. And your partner should add to your happiness. He shouldn't be the source of it. And that is something that sometimes women do. We put all the pressure on them and the relationship, our happiness, our lives, and absolutely everything depend on them. And I want to repeat this because sometimes I get this, I have read this comment in my videos 1,000 times, like happiness come from within. Yes, but sometimes someone can add to your happiness. That's what they should do. A partner should add to your happiness. And someone can rest your happiness, can drain, can take away your happiness. The environment is absolutely important. The people that we surround with is absolutely important. So we need to discern when we are being emotionally unstable because of something that we are going through, or when it's actually the other person. That is not the safest environment for ourselves. What we don't need here, women, is that we make the other person to become responsible for our emotional stability. And we do that a lot, yes. And that's when the relationship becomes exhausting. But I do think that it's very important to be able to differentiate when the emotional instability is because of us, or it really has to do that everything turns gray when we are with the other person. Number 5, these are some toxic traits that we tend to have sometimes, and multiple times can be very unconscious and multiple times can be on purpose, 100%. Silent treatment. Sometimes we are mad for whatever reason that happens and we decide to keep quiet for hours, for days, for weeks. I don't know. That necessarily will never help the relationship. Sometimes we do expect he should be the one to come and talk to me, to come and break the ice. And those things from both sides, it will never help to create the intimacy that a relationship needs. Being passive aggressive. Sometimes we want to let go of our anger in a meticulous way in the things that we say. How many times we expect him to read our mind? I do understand that sometimes we get exhausted of explaining all over again what is happening with us, and sometimes we think, okay, at this point he should know what's happening, or he should realize because of my mood. Many times we ask like this, but the truth is that sometimes men, they just live in a different bubble. I don't know. I don't know. They just don't see things the way we do. They don't feel things the way we do. They are rational. We are emotional. And sometimes their mind is in a very different situation or in a very different place, and they cannot read our mind. We shouldn't be expecting them to read our minds. We need to communicate. And another thing that we do is that sometimes we like to test them. We like to see, okay, I wait for him to do this to see if I forgive him or not. I can see myself in this, and I know many of you are resonating right now. If you are resonating in just a single thing that I have said, just click like in this video because it will help me a lot. But the thing is that all of these behaviors they don't create the intimacy, which is so important. That sense of complicity with the other, that also creates a very deeper connection. And it's extremely important. They mostly create confusion. And the thing is that a healthy relationship is built through conversation. Very uncomfortable conversations sometimes. And not guessing games. Number 6, bringing past wounds into present relationships. Sometimes we are not reacting to our partner. Sometimes we react to someone from 5 years ago. The other day I was watching on Netflix this reality TV that is called Love is Blind, and it's in very different countries. There's the Argentinian version and other countries as well. And I was laughing at one of the examples because there was this couple, this reality TV, there's two people that are getting to know each other, but they don't see their faces. There's a wall between them. And okay, so they don't see physically, they create an emotional connection before actually seeing each other's faces if they choose each other, okay? So the thing is that these two people were really connecting, but one of them was like, I don't know if I want this because you really remind me to someone that made me hurt in the past. And I was like, but come on, girl, it's not the same person. Like, it doesn't mean that he's going to behave the same. It doesn't mean that you are going to repeat absolutely everything. Sometimes we find coincidences in the people that we meet with things that past people in our life had, and we just acknowledge them as the same. And that is why healing is also very important, because when you go through that process and you meet someone that can have similar behaviors or personalities or you name it, instead of believing that you're just meeting the double of your ex, this time things can be different and you can give yourself a possibility as well. So, you just don't want, you don't want innocent situations to become battles. Number 7, forgetting to admire him. This is something that masculine men really, really need from a feminine woman, which is admiration. That sense of, I feel so good that I did it for you. I changed the light bulb for you and I feel so strong now because I'm taking care of you. And you say, you're my hero. They love that and they strive on that and they get some kind of chemicals that make them feel very good about it, and that will make them want to be your hero again and again and again. And many times in relationships come to a certain point where men actually receive a lot of criticism, much more frequently than appreciation. Sometimes all they hear is, you forgot this, you didn't pick the trash out, you should do this, I told you to do that, you never did this for me. And sometimes, we kind of feel this urge to communicate in the things that they are missing out. But in that way, eventually they will stop feeling like they can actually make us happy. Respect and admiration are an emotional fuel for men. And I also think that this happens when women, we start behaving like the mothers of our partners. And sometimes we find ourselves with boys instead of men. And they really expect us to do things their mother used to do. And that is not correct. That is not right. The moment you start treating your man like your mother, like the mother, you will lose interest for him. You will lose attraction. And then you won't feel the same while you're sleeping next to him. So if you feel that that is happening, probably you're needing a conversation to remind each other your positions and your roles. You want to be the wife, not the mother. Remember that. You want to be the lover, not the babysitter. Because I know, because I've been there, that when you are in that situation, that you feel like you have to be his assistant, you have to take care of him in many ways, you have to wash his laundry, you have to tell him to do things that men are supposed to do because he doesn't remember. And I can be the whole day naming examples because I know you know them and I've been there as well, and I know you have been there as well probably. And that's exactly the moment where we start demanding more and demanding more. And sometimes all we want is to fix the situation, but instead we twist it, we make a mess, and then I feel bad and he feels bad, and there's nothing romantic in this. I don't want this episode to make it like woman, we are the problem, because we are not. But I know some previous episodes where I am probably sharing from a point of view of what I had to do to get out of situations where it looks like the other side it was wrong. It's not really about it. It's also, I think it's important. This episode was suggested by someone, and I thought it was a very good idea, because it's important to take responsibility. It's important to sometimes understand that maybe we are doing something that if we change it a little bit, the whole relationship can change. And we can upgrade it, and we can actually nurture the bond and the connection that we have with someone in a romantic way. And I like the idea of making also this episode, because it helps me to confront uncomfortable truths about myself too. And something that I realized is that becoming a better partner requires just as much work as finding one. We want to find the right partner, but we need to become a good partner too. Because there's something that for sure we cannot control, and is somebody's growth. But of course, we can control ours. The healthiest relationships are not built by perfect people, but they are built by two very humble people who are willing to apologize, who are willing to learn, who are willing to grow. Because love isn't finding the right person, but it's about becoming one. God tells us that when we marry someone, we become one. Your problems are my problems. Your pain is my pain. Your sorrow is my sorrow. Your happiness is my happiness. And multiple times I don't see that. And I have experienced also that I was not in a relationship where I could share vulnerable moments like that. I was with someone that in a very vulnerable and painful moment, I was asking him for a hug while crying my heart out. And he told me, no, I don't want to touch you with that energy of sorrow, because it's contagious. I still cannot forget that moment, but I remember very much that after that, I said, I don't want a future with this man. And nothing could change that. In that moment, I realized that I was with someone who wasn't willing to share my lows, that he only wanted my happiness. And that is not becoming one flesh. That is not becoming one. And you cannot trust someone like that. So all of this leads you to really ask yourself, like, what kind of love you deserve. And you start to creating in your imagination, and you know what you want, you know what you don't want, you know what you deserve and what you don't deserve. And all the time we are asking that, what kind of man I deserve. But maybe today you can ask yourself, what kind of woman I am becoming? Because the quality of your future relationship will always be influenced by the quality of the person that you become before you enter it. And I know with this sentence, I'm talking to maybe single ladies out there, but maybe you are already in a relationship, you are in a multiple years marriage already, and you feel like things are stumbling a little bit. Ask yourself what kind of wife I am being, what kind of partner I am being, and if there's something that you can actually improve from yourself. And if you are one flesh, a switch will happen energetically when you change from your side. There will be a change from the other side, and maybe things get better. I enjoyed a lot having this conversation. I think it's very important also to have this type of conversations. I think many podcasts focus on what men should do. And I think it's important to invite women to self-reflection while we still affirming our worth. I think it's nice to have also a very mature conversation. So I really want to appreciate the lady who suggested this topic. And I hope you enjoy this episode as well. And I will see you on the final episode of this season number 1 of the Woman's Talk. I will see you very soon. Bye.